Taiwan faces the threat of losing another diplomatic ally just days after Nauru broke off ties. We look at how the military is making its runways bigger to boost the country's defense. A new traffic safety alliance looks to improve the design of Taiwan's roads. Plus,
Taiwan is bracing for a cold snap. With snow forecast in the hills around the capital Taipei, this school is closing its doors as a precaution.
welcome to another edition of TaiwanPlus News. I'm Liao with the latest. Thanks for joining us. Leading off with our top story, Tuvalu's ambassador has told Australian media that the country could soon break relations with Taipei in favor of Beijing. He's called on Australia and its partners to watch the situation and increase support for its nation. Louise Watt reports from Taiwan's foreign ministry on Taipei's reaction.
Taiwan's foreign ministry is stressing the importance of its ties with fellow island nation Tuvalu, saying it cherishes its ally and it's willing to enhance relations. This after the Tuvaluan ambassador told media that his country could follow its neighbor Nauru and ditch Taipei in favor of Beijing. Tuvalu is Taiwan's longest-standing ally in the Pacific, a region where China has been trying to increase its influence. The loss of Nauru brought Taiwan's official allies down to 12, a setback to Taiwan after elections that saw the ruling party's candidate, Lai Ching-te, win the presidency, a result Beijing did not want to see. Senior Tuvaluan officials sent congratulations to President-elect Lai on his victory, but the country is holding its own elections in a few days. Whether they will want to continue working with Taiwan will depend on Tuvalu's next government. Scott Huang and Louise Watt at Taiwan's Foreign Ministry for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's military will widen runways at 7 air bases to improve their resilience to attacks. The Defense Ministry and U.S. advisors decided to expand runways to 60 meters after last year's Hanguang military exercises, Taiwan's largest defense drills. Widened runways can be repaired faster and would be big enough for U.S. bombers and large transport aircraft to land on. To learn more about the importance of runways to Taiwan's defense, our reporter Jaime Okan spoke to Liao from the Global China Hub at the Atlantic Council based in Washington, D.C.
How important are runways when it comes to Taiwan's overall defense strategy?
Well, this is Taiwan's first line of defense, right? Runway, we're talking about, mostly we're talking about runway acting as a way for fighter jets to take off. And Taiwan's fighter jets, the primary mission is air defense. But of course, people are going to asking, what about missiles? So it's very important to understand, seizing initiative is equally as important. And also, this is one of the few methods that Taiwan could actually actively seize the initiative. We're not just waiting passively for the enemy to strike, right? What am I talking about here? I'm talking about anti-shipping missions, strikes against amphibious groups, rapid responses to high-value ground targets. For example, if the enemy were to land and try to seize ports, and none of your artillery could be coordinated in time, an airstrike would be your fastest way to actually get there, right? That's the advantage of air power. It's fast. It's almost instantaneous, but it's also very expensive.
And when we look at kind of the way that Taiwan's military is going, last year in Taiwan's largest military drills, the Hanguang exercises in late July, we did see this kind of emphasis on protecting key infrastructure and rapid repair of these infrastructures. How important is that in the sense of being able to stay in a potential fight?
So one of the things I want to focus, especially if we're talking about runway here, is that there's a lot of rhetoric out there about destruction of runways. Runways are not that easy to completely destroy. You can take them out of commission, you can booby trap them, you can even dig a huge hole in the middle of it. But it ain't gonna take that long to actually repair them, right? In past war experiences, the longest anybody ever take was 10 hours. And basically, according to the reports we received, they're actually shortening that prospective time frame to about 1 to 2.5 hours. Now, this is, of course, during peacetime exercise. In wartime, you might not have sufficient manpower. You might have other disruptions, but this is not permanent. And it's very important to focus on that because Taiwan does have sufficient, bunkers to actually shelters to protect all its airplanes, to protect all the high-value, irreplaceable assets.
That was Liao from the Global China Hub speaking to our reporter Jaime Okan. Taiwan's Navy is establishing a new missile command center. The base will be built in the central county of Yunling and be responsible for overseeing the country's anti-ship missile forces. An unnamed defense official says the base itself will not house any missiles. Taiwan has seen more Chinese warships operating near the country and has increased coastal defense systems in response. A road safety group that's campaigning to bring pedestrian deaths in the country down to zero is taking aim at road design. The alliance says bad design is to blame for many accidents. Jeremy Olivier reports.
This busy street in central Taipei is just one of many where cars and scooters and people on foot all share the same space. Now, Taiwan is known as one of the safest countries in the world. It's also got a growing reputation for its dangerous roads. It's especially true for pedestrians. Over 600 people died after being hit on Taiwan's streets last year. It's a big jump from previous years. Now, a lot of this has to do with poor enforcement of traffic safety rules, something the government is trying to improve with new laws and steeper fines on drivers. But another issue are Taiwan's sidewalks and other pedestrian walkways. Now, these are often inconsistent, they're poorly kept, or they're used for purposes other than walking. But a new alliance of traffic safety groups is trying to bring awareness to this problem in Taiwan. They've got a list of demands, and that includes improving Taiwan's pedestrian areas. They say road design here has actually gotten worse over the past few decades.
在民国80年代的道路，甚至是比较好的规划，就是还有实体的人行道，还有路缘，还有右转的车道。但是到同一个地方、同一个地图，现在的图纸资料库它反而是没有的。
The group says it wants to push for more people-oriented transportation. That means giving pedestrians more safe spaces to walk. With so many of Taiwan's streets, like this one, geared toward drivers, they may have a long road ahead before they can reach their goal of zero pedestrian deaths. John Su and Jeremy Olivier in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
A landslide in southwestern China has buried 47 people, killing at least 2. About 500 people were evacuated from the area, and rescue workers are still searching for survivors. China's state media says the disaster happened in Yunnan province early Monday morning. Landslides are common in this part of China. A mass of cold air from the north is forcing temperatures to drop suddenly in Taiwan. As Rick Liao reports, the winter weather could bring snow to parts of the country, including in the hills around the capital Taipei.
A final day of class this week for these students in the hills around Taipei. Their school is closing its doors as cold air from the north sends temperatures plummeting across the subtropical island nation.
因为真的预期的这个寒流来会造成可能路上会结冰的这个情形，可能其他区域它可能它气候比较干燥，它可能不会有路面积雪的情形，会湿滑。那我们这边的确会有这样的情形，所以我们就做了这样子的一个共识跟决定。
The weather here is set to drop to below 10 degrees Celsius, and for the first time in years, snow is forecast on the highest parts of the capital. The government is warning the public to take measures to stay warm. Most public buildings in Taiwan are better suited to the country's usually temperate weather and hot summers than cold snaps like this one. When the temperature suddenly falls, it can take the country off guard. Officials are also concerned for drivers that aren't accustomed to freezing conditions. In the mountains, police are planning traffic control measures to check cars are fitted with snow chains. This rare freeze comes during one of Taiwan's warmest winters on record. But global warming and climate change is making freak weather like this harder to forecast.
We can predict by our experience, but sometimes when all of the data show is break the record, sometimes it's not easy to predict the extreme case in the future. So that's why we are very worried about the climate change.
For those who made the trek to this national park, Taiwan's big freeze has divided opinion.
明天我们有几个朋友约好，就是说如果有下雪，大概6点多就要上来。 所以就可能会行程就会改变啊，之后可能就附近的景点走走啊，或阳明北投哪里泡温泉这样。
People here won't have much time to bear or to enjoy this chilly weather. Within a few days, temperatures here are expected to return to double digits. Luffy Lee and Rick Liao for TaiwanPlus.
It's not just Taiwan dealing with cold weather. A deadly winter storm is sweeping North America, causing major disruptions in the U.S. and Canada. Rosie Greninger has more.
An Arctic blast grips North America, with temperatures plunging as low as minus 30 degrees Celsius. The cold conditions have left over 90 people dead. More than 35 states and 70 million people across the US and Canada have been placed under weather alerts as temperatures fall to dangerous levels. Snowstorms, ice and sub-zero wind chill cut power to thousands and caused travel disruptions over the last week.
It's everywhere. People are blocked in.
And not only in North America. In Europe, hundreds of flights grounded in Germany and France due to heavy snowfall. But beyond travel chaos on both sides of the Atlantic, the unseasonable cold is raising concern for those who cannot shelter from the elements.
I think it's definitely been the case that, people who are poor and people who are homeless are getting hit the hardest.
Though some parts of the US are used to icy temperatures, after record-breaking summer heat, many were unprepared for this cold front. But a reprieve is on the way, with warmer weather expected in North America by midweek. Klein Wang and Rosie Greninger for TaiwanPlus.
Coming up after the break, an indigenous village passes down knowledge by putting up a traditional house. Stay tuned.
经历过人生的话，你发现说，我们大部分都是爱美的。
我自己少遇见一朵花，我可能就不是这个样子。
开始思考什么叫做一个本土性。
大声的唱出来说我是台湾人。
There's so many things that I wish the world could see.
It is amazing to watch this captain maneuver this giant ship.
It takes 3 days to cook this. The flavor is unbelievable, incredible.
And it's my turn to make something inspired by Chef Gore. It's going to be quite a challenge.
Can you imagine that?
It's surreal. Yes, so real.
I can't give up. I got some ass kicking to do.
Nice move.
We're pushing each other to explore and experiment in new, different ways.
5, 4, 3, 2.
A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News.
Exploring the issues that matter to you.
Not just to Taiwan, the whole world is watching.
很多时候是我们眼睛看不到的地方。
We might encounter mishaps and mistakes along the way. But at the end of the day,
it just transmits something straight from the heart. Yes. Cheers. Bon appetit.
It is about the fun and it's about the glamour and it's also about something much deeper than that.
Sometimes you just gotta seize the opportunity. You just gotta do it.
Have a place where you're appreciated for you exactly as you are, and where you can shine and be seen.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. The main opposition Kuomintang is set to nominate its 2020 presidential candidate Han Kuo-yu for legislative speaker. That's after party lawmaker Fu Kun-hsi dropped his bid. Han says he'll push to restore the so-called 1992 consensus if elected speaker. That's a controversial agreement that says Taiwan belongs to one China. The party holding the presidency rejects this position. Han will need the backing of the rival opposition Taiwan People's Party to win the speakership. The new legislature will vote for speaker on its first day, February 1st. Pilots from one of Taiwan's largest airlines are pushing to go on strike over Lunar New Year. A walkout could cause travel chaos for thousands of people trying to get home for the holiday, as Tiffany Wong now reports.
The Taoyuan Pilots Union has obtained the right to strike and may do so as early as Lunar New Year, Taiwan's biggest holiday season. Early this morning, union members counted votes, with 900 voters overwhelmingly showing support for the strike and only 10 voting against it. The Pilots Union has been calling for better safety protocols and fair wages for workers at EVA Airlines, one of Taiwan's largest airlines. The union chair, who's also an EVA pilot, said that they would still be open to negotiations with their employer.
我们还是希望在这当中，长荣航空好好的坐下来，跟工会对一个平等的协商态度，拿出实质的解决办法出来。工会绝对不是为了罢工而罢工，我们都希望可以好好的坐下来解决这一场争议。
Last month, EVA announced bonuses and pay raises, which the union dismissed as a tactic to disrupt their vote. Following today's results, EVA Air did not respond in time for comment. The pilots' union says it will give at least 24 hours notice in advance of a strike, which would affect long-haul flights from major cities in the US, Canada, and Europe. So those hoping to fly during Taiwan's biggest holiday season should be prepared for travel chaos. Justin Wu and Tiffany Wong in Taoyuan for TaiwanPlus.
Turning now to international news, 178 people were killed in Gaza in a 24-hour period, making it one of the deadliest days since Israel began its offensive. Israeli forces and Hamas fighters clashed in both the north and south of the Gaza Strip. It comes as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu rejected the terms of a ceasefire plan to end the war, which he said would leave Hamas in power in Gaza. He also rejected the prospect of a future Palestinian state. Gaza's health ministry says the death toll since October has now passed 25,000. That number is expected to increase as supplies dwindles and temperatures drop. Ron DeSantis has dropped out of the U.S. presidential race, leaving Donald Trump with just one challenger for the Republican nomination. The Florida governor ended his White House bid, saying he does not have a clear path to victory and will instead back Trump. Trump remains popular among Republicans despite facing 91 felony counts across the country. Trump's remaining rival is former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, who's vying to be the first female president of the United States. But fewer competitors could make it harder for her to win.
She needed DeSantis and Ramaswamy to stay in because those people were not pulling votes from her. They were pulling votes from Trump. So she needed to divide the Trump vote up more than it is.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has expressed interest in visiting Pyongyang. North Korean state TV said Putin made the comments during a meeting in Moscow with Foreign Minister Cho Sun-hui last week, and that the visit could come at, quote, an early date. Relations between North Korea and Russia have blossomed in recent months, with Kim Jong-un visiting Russia last September. He is one of the few world leaders who openly supports Putin's war in Ukraine. A school in the eastern county of Ilan is building new ways of preserving local indigenous culture. Rick Liao reports.
There's a new lesson to be learned at this school in eastern Taiwan's Ilan County. The playground now includes a traditional dwelling built by the local indigenous Dayan group.
看到很多现在没看到的东西，学习那个以前人他做家务有用到什么智慧。
It's part of efforts to preserve the building techniques of the Dayan people. Taiwan is home to some 600,000 indigenous people, 3% of the country's population. Languages and traditional ways of life are at risk of disappearing, making it important to educate the next generation.
有一个家屋在这边，当做我们一个泰雅文化学习的一个很重要的一个教学场域。
Elders also hope to impart practical, sustainable knowledge that can help residents here as Taiwan's weather becomes more extreme.
它优势是
冬天的话是比较不会怕冷的，不会说很冷。夏天的话就比较也不会热。
Passing on traditional skills and knowledge for the next generation is important for the Dayan people, something they know must be built on a strong foundation. Patrick Chen and Rick Liao for TaiwanPlus.
The formosan salmon, a species found only in Taiwan, has been brought back from the brink of extinction. Sally Jensen takes a look at how conservationists did it.
These are not everyday hikers in the mountains of Taiwan. They're carrying out work that's seen a breakthrough in conservation. And their special charge, fertilized formosan salmon eggs. They've been carried up to freshwater creeks in the country's central mountain range.
把石头先拨开，它就会放到跟其他石头齐平的地方。那等它孵化的时候，它会变得非常的软，就会一孵出来就会掉下来，沉在底部。
The Formosan salmon is one of the rarest species of fish in the world and is endemic to Taiwan. It's seen an explosion in numbers, from as few as 200 in 1995 to more than 15,000 in 2023, a record high. This is in large part due to conservation efforts. Previously, helping these threatened salmon was a lot of work, as conservationists had to carry small fry in water to the high-altitude streams. They could only release a few hundred at a time, making the method less effective. But now, using water-free incubation boxes, thousands of fertilized eggs can be more easily transported and buried in streams, greatly increasing their chances of survival.
这个突破呢，以后就可以算是到比较高海拔地方很困难到达的地方，可以不用水，那我们就可以去把它埋设。那它的活存率将近可能有3成4成。
One of Taiwan's most recognizable species, the Formosan salmon is featured on the country's currency. And having been brought back from the brink of extinction in the last 30 years, it's now also a conservation success story. Dolphin Chen and Sally Jensen for TaiwanPlus.
People trying to visit hot springs this winter may be disappointed as some public baths struggle to stay open for lack of water. In recent months, a popular free hot spring in one of Taiwan's most famous national parks has been forced to close repeatedly because it couldn't fill its tubs. Owners are blaming climate change and a lack of rain, which has dried up water sources. Taiwan is still recovering from major recent droughts and unusually low number of typhoons making landfall, causing a water shortage that's hurt several industries. An entrepreneur is turning waste into power for the West African country of Benin. The plan gives the country much needed electricity without using fossil fuels. John Van Trieste has the story.
This woman is part of an energy transition underway in the West African country of Benin. The scraps from the meal she's preparing will help power the entire community. It's all thanks to a company called Benin Biogas that's bringing electricity to a growing part of the country without the need for fossil fuels. Founder Enoch Nyana recalls his grandmother's struggles to collect wood for fuel, the power outages that plagued his student days, and the fateful moment that inspired him to change things.
C'est comme ça, un soir, j'étais en train de préparer et puis, par inadvertance, la bougie que j'utilisais à la cuisine est tombée dans ma poubelle. Et ça a pris feu. Donc quand ça a pris feu, je me suis dit, mais ça c'est quoi ça? Donc je me suis intéressé à cela en échangeant avec mon professeur de chimie de l'environnement. Et c'est là qu'il me dit que c'est le biogaz.
Biogas is methane-rich fuel created when organic waste, like food scraps, decomposes. Benin Biogas has recreated Nyana's kitchen accident on a much bigger scale across a growing number of communities, building massive underground tanks where local people's waste can turn into large amounts of biogas. Hundreds of households and over a dozen farms are on board, supplying their waste and getting power in return. In some cases, the tanks create enough gas to provide customers with 24-hour off-grid electricity.
Tout ce qui est déchets issus de l'élevage et issus de la transformation seront récupérés pour produire du gaz dans la logique de pouvoir alimenter les fours, les cuisines, les foyers pour les cuissons, les torréfactions, mais aussi produire de l'électricité.
The company also composts waste into quality fertilizer, breaking local farmers' reliance on pricey, less than eco-friendly imports. Yana says the transition from fossil fuels still needs time, but he sees a brighter future for his country's power and agriculture sectors thanks to the movement he started.
Et en installant ces centrales délocalisées, décentralisées dans les communautés, on va se rendre compte qu'à un moment donné, on aura une qualité de vie améliorée, un milieu totalement assaini. Et le problème lié au challenge de la disponibilité des fertilisants aujourd'hui va être aussi résolu.
It's local initiatives like this that are spreading access to electricity while limiting the environmental impact of the world's ever greater demand for power. James Lin and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
In sports, Taiwan's Dai Ziying has claimed her first title of the year at the India Open in New Delhi. Dai beat China's Chen Yufei in straight sets to win the women's singles final in just over 40 minutes. Chen took an early lead, but Dai rallied to take the first set 21-16 and the second by 21-12. Chen previously beat Dai for the gold medal at the Tokyo Olympics. That's it for this edition of Taiwan Plus News. Be sure to check out our social media and website for more. Finally today, we leave you with images of 500 inflatable ducks floating around Love River Bay in Kaohsiung. It's going to be hard to get them in a row. I'm Liao. Take care, and I'll see you next time.